Hello and welcome to the 16th annual Into the Light Walk, or roll I should say, as we all got here on four wheels this evening. My name is Lori Vick and I'll be your MC for the evening here at the drive-in. I have the privilege to serve on the board of directors for LifeAct, and I am also a suicide survivor. My husband John lost his battle with depression and died by suicide 15 years ago. Through the years, it's been my mission to turn that tragedy into advocacy for depression and for mental health awareness. And what's wonderful tonight is to know that we have 200 cars here filled with fellow advocates, because that's what all of you are, just by being here tonight. By driving in here tonight, you are symbolically running over and crushing the stigma that still surrounds mental illness. Now, I know that in past years, we'd all be walking through the zoo, some of us hand in hand, arm in arm, and strolling through a path of luminaries to show our solidarity. Well, we can't do that tonight, but there is a way we can show our solidarity. And here's what I want you to do. This is the audience participation part of the program. When I say 3, and wait till I count to 3, I want you to turn on your headlights and those fancy schmancy flashlights you got when you registered tonight and flash them on and off a few times, okay? All right, everyone ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Turn on those lights. I trust that there is a sea of brightness out there. You're all flashing your lights, and here's what you are really doing. You are shining the light on depression awareness and blinding the heck out of the stigma. Okay, you can turn your lights off now. But please believe that with that kind of awareness, together we can prevent suicide, and we are saving lives. Because no one should ever have to suffer in silence, and no one should ever be left behind to wonder why and what if. This evening is all about hope and healing, and we thank each of you for being here and supporting the life-saving mission of LifeAct. We invite you to get all comfortable in your cars and join us for what promises to be a very powerful program. Included in the rundown, we're going to hear from our inspirational instructors who deliver our educational program to close to 30,000 middle and high school students each and every year. Members of our Youth Advisory Board, or YAB, will share with us their very personal reasons for spreading the LifeAct mission. And we'll have a bit of entertainment sprinkled throughout the evening from some very talented musicians. So let's get our program underway right now with our keynote speaker, Rick Knapp. Rick is the co-author of the acclaimed memoir, Sons of Suicide, a Memoir of Friendship, which weaves together themes of life-shattering tragedy and life-affirming friendship. Rick and his co-author David met in high school and quickly learned that they had a unique bond over a very life-changing secret: the deaths of each of their mothers to suicide. They were able to bond over their feelings of loss and developed a lifelong friendship. Rick moved to the Cleveland area with his wife Ellen from Princeton, New Jersey in 1993, and is proud to continue to call Cleveland home. Let's turn now to Rick and his story of strength and resiliency.
Thank you, Lori, and thanks to LifeAct and to all of you for coming today. I want to share a story. It's my story, and it's a little bit difficult to share. I was 14 years old. We lived in Kettering, Ohio, a suburb of Dayton. And one weekend, my mom was going away to a hotel in downtown Dayton for a little bit of rest and recreation. And my dad and my sister and I went to pick her up. We drove in our white Rambler to the parking garage next door to the hotel. And Dad said, well, I'm gonna go and get Mom, just wait here. So we waited in the car. We waited what seemed like an awfully long time. My sister, who was only 9 years old at the time, was getting pretty antsy, so we talked, we played some games, we sang a little bit. And then some man came to the car, someone we didn't know, confirmed who we were and said that Dad would be out in a short while. Well, a short while wasn't very short. It seemed to take a long time. And my sister, even more anxious and antsy about being there in the car, having nothing to do. So we played some more games. I told her, well, Dad probably is having to help her pack, or maybe they had a problem checking out of the hotel. But it was an awfully long time. We played games, we sang. We counted how many blue cars were coming into the parking garage. And then I looked out the left window of the car, and I saw walking down the ramp my dad and our rabbi. And I knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. My mother took her life just a few weeks before her 40th birthday. I can't tell you exactly what my feelings were at the time. I don't think I could recognize what those feelings were or enunciate them clearly. Certainly a sense of great grief, a sense perhaps of abandonment, sadness. But I really had no one to talk with. My sister was pretty young. We'd talk once in a while about Mom's death. My dad, who was going through his own grieving process and probably felt some guilt about his wife taking her life and some stigma around that notion of suicide, he wasn't available to us either. I know he was concerned about the kids, and he still had to go to work and earn a living, and how was he going to do all of this? Mostly what I remember from that time is being in a deep fog, a fog that I couldn't see through completely. And what I remember is that some things seemed like they were in slow motion and others rapid speed. Now I want to fast forward 2.5 years. Dad got remarried. He had a new job. We moved from Dayton or Kettering to a suburb of Washington, D.C., where his new job was. And we were there for about a year when he had an opportunity to go to Hawaii to coordinate a study for an unknown period of time. So we all moved to Hawaii. And then in March of my senior year, 7 months later, we wound up moving back to Maryland. It was quite interesting, and I called the school that I'd gone to as a junior to find out where I needed to pick up the bus to get to school, and they gave me directions. And I stood at the assigned corner, got there a little bit early, and saw a teenage guy standing at a corner across the street, and then a few other teenagers kind of gathering around there. And I said, hey, I wonder if I'm in the wrong place, until I heard a voice cry out. He said, "Are you going to Duval?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Over here." He probably thought I was a real idiot. I wound up sitting next to David on the bus. We talked a little bit on the way to school and home from school. Turns out we had quite a bit in common. We were both born in New York City. We were both baseball fans. He was a Dodgers fan, and I was a Yankees fan at the time. But I have to tell you, I did convert to be an Indians fan. And we would talk a little bit about what was going on in school. We'd meet at his house, his aunt and uncle's house, where he was living at the time. And within about 2 weeks, he had revealed to me something very personal. He was reluctant to even say it, and I was equally reluctant to respond. His mother had taken her life just a few years earlier when he was 13. Well, needless to say, that created a great bond. Here was someone who had been through something very similar to what I had been through. And I thought there was nobody else in the world who could identify with losing a mother to suicide. So we talked. And we would talk at his house or my house, often just go for walks. And sometimes we would walk to a park near us and sit on a bench. So we'd sit on the bench, and we'd talk about a range of things, about baseball games, about school, about our plans for after we graduated. But often we would talk a lot about how we were doing, how we felt several years after our mother's suicides. It was just a big relief to have someone to talk with who could understand what I was going through. And I could understand what he was going through, even though there were some differences for certain. But it was like a pressure cooker valve had been opened up in my head, and instead of letting all of that fester inside me, I was able to let it out. There was someone who wasn't judgmental, who didn't have the same sense of the stigma attached to me that some other people had attached to him or to me. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for us. As a matter of fact, some younger people won't understand this, but in a sense, the bench was our psychiatrist's couch, and we were each other's counselors. And I've said a number of times that in a way, being able to talk with David helped save us at the time and sustains us even today. Now, the bench has other significance. If you read our book, Sons of Suicide, you'll see it cropping up a number of times. But a few years ago, David and I were in Chicago with a couple of friends for a baseball weekend. We had pizza and baseball and took the architectural tour of Chicago. And while we were there, it happens that three of us were sitting on a bench looking out at Lake Michigan. And this friend of ours, who we'd known for 20 years at the time, who we knew quite well, revealed to us that his father had taken his life when Tom was in his early 20s. David and I couldn't believe it, that here again was another friend of ours who we'd known for so long, who had kept it inside for so long, and we didn't know it. Now, lest you think that this is all old news, let me tell you another story. A couple of years ago, we were in Shaker Heights at a dinner party given by some friends of ours. There were 4 couples there. And before dinner, the 4 men were standing around having a drink. And one of them said to me, "Well, Rick, what have you been doing since you retired?" And I said, "Well, retirement's great. I spend more time with the family. We've been able to do some travel. I do some volunteer work with some organizations around Cleveland. And I've been writing a book." And of course, the natural question was, "Well, what's your book about?" And I very briefly described it. And one of the gentlemen standing there said, "Well, that's really a coincidence. My father took his life when I was in my early 20s. Well, the subject matter changed. Our host said, "Rick, I'll bet you once your book comes out, people will come out of the woodwork telling you their stories." And indeed, some of that's been true. But as the dinner party ended, and Ellen and I were the last ones there, our host walked me toward the door and he said, "Rick, remember I told you that people would come out of the woodwork telling you their stories? Well, my mother took her life as well. She died by suicide." I was astounded. I mean, they're at a dinner party with 4 men, and 3 of us were sons of suicide. To this day, he has not talked to his grown daughter about his mother's suicide, only with his wife, and now more recently with me. And I can't imagine keeping that inside for so long. That's one of the reasons why I so admire the work of LifeAct and so appreciate its value to help young people identify in themselves and in their peers the kinds of behaviors or attitudes and emotions that may indicate some emotional problems or even suicidality, and then connecting those people with the resources that can really help them. There weren't many of those resources around when my mother died by suicide. So if I could offer a piece of advice to you, to any of you who have experienced some kind of traumatic event, who are distressed about anything, and especially the young men out there who tend not to open up very much, my suggestion would be find someone to talk to. It could be a teacher, it could be a clergy person, it could be a counselor or a psychologist, or if you're lucky, it could be a good friend like I found. But talk to someone. Now, Last December, the Cleveland Playhouse staged a one-person play called Every Brilliant Thing. It was a terrific play, and LifeAct actually sponsored one night of it. The premise of the play was that the character had a mother who was depressed, chronically depressed. And in order to cheer her up, and probably to keep himself positive too, he started making a list of wonderful things in the world. And when he was young, it started out with simple things like an ice cream cone or a flower. But he kept that list going for years. And it got more sophisticated. And he got up to 100 and then 1,000 brilliant things. Well, his mother eventually took her life. He became depressed over time and even considered suicide. But he kept that list going. And that list reached over 10,000. So I have two requests of you tonight. When you came in, you were given an index card. And I would like you to write down on your index card a brilliant thing, something that is just so wonderful about life, about being here, even in an environment where we're battling COVID and we have to maintain social distancing and our lives are upended. There still are things out there. I'm going to write down right now fireworks, since they're coming later. And then I'd like you to give this to someone who's going to be standing at the exit to the drive-in theater tonight as you leave. And a few of you will have a little blue dot on your card. And those of you who do, we're pleased to give you a copy of our book. Now, the other thing that I'd like to ask is a personal favor. If this were live, if we were at the zoo for the walk into the light, I would entertain questions from you. I'd stick around afterwards to hear your stories. But since that's not possible, what I'd like to do is ask you to contact me. Here's the email address where you can do that. sonsofsuicide2020@gmail.com. sonsofsuicide2020@gmail.com. And I'll be glad to respond to what you send me. Finally, I want to leave you with some words of wisdom from that great philosopher, Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers. And thank you all very much.
Hi folks, Jason White here, coming to you from my studio in Nashville. Right here on my recording desk, I keep this picture of my best buddy John Treadway and me at the high school talent show. Some of you were probably there, and you know we lost John to suicide back in 1990. Not a day goes by when I don't miss him. And I still feel like he's looking over my shoulder, telling me whether a song's any good or not. After all these years, one of the hardest parts for me is knowing some of the things that John missed out on, things he never got to do, things he never got to see. And I wish there'd been someone there when we were young guys to let us know how serious the threat of suicide can be and what the warning signs are and what action we could have taken. Because things could have been so different. So I'm very thankful for the great work that LifeAct does. And I'm thankful for all of you for your continued support. I'm going to play you a little song that I wrote during a time in my life when I was pretty depressed. And somebody near and dear to me helped me through it. It's called Some Days. Some days I wake up cold, wondering if I'm getting old. I wish there was someone to hold, someone like you. Some days I just can't believe all the sad news there is to grieve. Wish I was Adam and you were Eve, and it was just me and you. 'Cause some days I just don't know how much further I can go. I get so tired of having to say someday. Some days I'm lost in space, want no part of the human race. It's hard to see many signs of grace, except maybe in you. Some days I'm just out of fuel, don't know how hearts could get so cruel, and I pray that I'm not playing the fool, believing in you. 'Cause some days I just don't know how much further I can go. I get so tired of having to say someday. Some days are just like waking dreams. I'm plugged into crazy dream machines with no idea what any of it means. Just know I love you. Hey, 'cause some days I look in your eyes and I hear laughter and lullabies and promises of cloudless skies beaming on me and you. Yeah, some days I do believe there's still a few tricks up my sleeve, and you find a will, I'll find a way someday. Hey, la 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 Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
Join me as we turn now to Dr. John Hertzer, President of the LifeAct Board of Directors and the Division Chief of Psychiatry at University Hospital's Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital and the Division Chief of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at Cleveland Medical Center, as he shares an inspiring look at resiliency, so pertinent during these difficult times.
Hello, I'm John Hertzer. I'm proud to serve as the President of the LifeAct Board of Directors and as the Director of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at University Hospital's Rainbow Babies and Children. It's also a privilege to speak to all of you virtually, while at the same time very much looking forward to sharing in-person conversations, well wishes, and yes, maybe even some hugs at a divine point in our future. The LifeAct program is so important to me and to our field of child and adolescent psychiatry and psychology because it emphasizes the importance of early identification of mental health needs, specifically depression. LifeAct is all about life and hope, and the LifeAct program helps students tap into that goal and to speak the language to accomplish that purpose, which may include saying, I'm not right. I'm not feeling right. My friend is not right. I'm fortunate to be on the receiving end of LifeAct referrals. One student in particular said, I'm here because of this pen. He went on to describe the depths of his depression, and we went on to create a successful treatment plan. This year, above all years, has been trying, unprecedented, and one in which resilience is identified. LifeAct's Drive-In Night allows us to look at that big screen and recall resilient staples of the cinema. Indiana Jones, Rudy, Wonder Woman, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ethan Hunt, Katniss Everdeen, Hermione. Who can forget Wile E. Coyote? And of course, Rocky. These amazing figures, portrayed by talented actors and actresses, bring joy and entertainment to us. Among the most resilient group I encounter this year and in usual times is the patient population I have the privilege to serve. Sometimes they need to accept less despair, as one teenager put it, but merely as a stepping stone to feeling well, which she ultimately achieved in the treatment process. The LifeAct program teaches students to reach out, whether it be for themselves or a peer, and in doing so, to discover the path of life-altering mental health care. Thank you for reaching out to us tonight and throughout the year. LifeAct is able to provide programs for free to every school because of your support. Make no mistake about it, you are saving lives tonight. Thank you.
Recently, 4 of LifeAct's instructors, Livia Fry, Elaine Myers, Marcos Ortiz, and Susan McGrath, gathered to discuss their biggest takeaways of their combined 4 decades of delivering the LifeAct program, which helps young people to recognize the signs of depression in themselves and their peers. Well, they've taught tens of thousands of students right here in Northeast Ohio. Their reflections are heartwarming and give credence to the value of your support to the LifeAct program.
In our lifetimes, the understanding of depression has undergone a huge shift. When I was in graduate school, to become a therapist, I was taught that if you had depression, it was because you had the wrong attitude.
Oh, wow.
And my job as a therapist was to help you change your attitude. That's what therapy was all about, to change your attitude. Exactly.
Wow.
And it was only going to work if the person really wanted to change. And I tell this to the students, and I ask them, how many people do you think I cured of depression with that form of therapy? 0. Thank goodness we've come to, the professionals have come to an understanding that it's not what depression is. It is a brain disease.
Right.
How do you know if a teenager might be struggling with depression? I think the first thing and the main word I would think of is changes. Something has changed. They're not the same person they used to be. And those changes can come in all different forms. Changes in mood, changes in how they spend their time. When they start isolating themselves, they don't want to hang out with their friends. Friends are really, really important for teens. And a teenager who pulls back from their friends and starts to isolate, that's a red flag that there's something going on, and it could very well be depression.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think oftentimes kids who have changed will go to alternate substances. They may start smoking where they didn't smoke, or using marijuana, or drinking alcohol in excess, because they don't like the way they feel, and they want to feel different. They want to feel how they used to feel.
I think one of the things I learned recently at a seminar we were all attending virtually was that there are some rather natural changes in interests, like it would be natural to not be interested in Barbie dolls, but this. And so for a parent or for an adult who's concerned about somebody, just think about that as you look at some of the changes in interests in particular.
And not liking to do the things that they would normally like to do. So if they were in the drama club and loved performing, all of a sudden they don't want to do that anymore. or they quit the football team or quit the swim team.
That's not a growing up change.
No,
That's
and oftentimes kids lose interest in things, and that's normal. But if they really love something and all of a sudden shut down, that's showing that something's wrong.
Right. It's why it's so important for us to get in there, give them the information, because many times they're going through these changes that you guys are mentioning, but like you said, they don't know exactly what's happening. So, I mean, my job is to point them to the person who can tell them exactly what's going on.
And I think every single one of us has had the experience of a student coming up to us after we've given our presentation saying, I felt like you were talking about me.
Exactly. That was the first experience I had the first time I delivered the program. I was thinking that I was going to go into a classroom, deliver the information, and go home. And that did not happen because a student in the back of the classroom kind of raised his hand. He said, Mr. Ortiz, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. And as I walked towards that student, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this, for every step I took towards that young man, a tear came out of his eye. By the time I reached him, his head was down on the desk, and he said, everything you talked about, that was me. And then he said, sometimes I don't want to live anymore, please help. And that's when I realized, like, oh my gosh, this is happening. This is prevalent, this is here. And so since then, many students have come forward, and you guys know how hard it is, for them. If it were not for our program being in the classroom, many times they're just going to sit there and struggle with what they're going through. So I'm really grateful for all the teachers like you who open the doors for programs like LifeAct to come in and be able to address these issues with students, because otherwise, who knows what would happen.
We know that we reach kids. We know that kids will listen to us sometimes more than they'll listen to their parents or their regular teacher. It's nice to have somebody different coming in to the school. The kids perceive us maybe as somebody who knows what they're talking about in terms of the subject area. But personally, I do it because I know if I can just save one kid, I've done it.
The one thank you that I got from a girl, it was the end of class, and I was talking to a young fella, and she sort of stood back, and as she approached me, there was just a little tear came down, and she said, I just want to thank you. I had no idea my dad was sick. She had lost her father to suicide when she was 4 years old. And so here she is at 15, carrying that horrible burden. And yet, can't you just see, if there's a 4-year-old involved in the family and there's a suicide, who explains anything to a 4-year-old? So even though we've got your wonderful statistics to prove we're making a difference, I think there's a lot of little other stories in there too. You just, bottom line, you don't know, sometimes how much you can affect people. But
I don't care how great a parent you are. I don't care how wonderful your relationship is with your teen. Again, if your son or daughter broke their leg, as a parent, you're not going to try to fix it. You're going to get them to somebody who can deal with a broken leg. And it's the same way if you think your son or daughter is going through something that could possibly be depression, you get to a professional.
At its core, LifeAct is all about creating positive change in the lives of teens and instilling in them skills that will last a lifetime. LifeAct's Youth Advisory Board is made up of close to 50 high school students who meet to give guidance and have become the boots on the ground, if you will, to the LifeAct programming staff. Recently, our cameras caught up with current and past presidents for an open and honest conversation about the role of mental health in their lives and what LifeAct means to them. Let's join Evie Callahan, Cammie Kay, and Daniel Berlin.
I think that so often mental health is, in a way, put in a different arena than physical health and other markers of well-being. And I think that mental health is as important, if not more important, than a lot of other things that we talk about so often that don't have this major stigma around it. So.
Part of what I was going to say is basically what he said, that mental health is treated as a completely separate issue, as in it's like a kind of not shunned upon, but in a lot of the stigma is so huge and a lot of people have a completely altered perspective of it. But in reality, it's a lot of issues are just as common as physical health issues. It's just as important and it's just as prevalent. And then it's also just such a misrepresented issue in the media and word of mouth and everything. People just misunderstand it and they don't give it the respect and the treatment it deserves.
Obviously, a lot of things in the media are made to be something that they're not, and when it's talking about the topic of mental health, that's very dangerous to be, because it's a misrepresentation. But we can't have the media without drama, and we can't have the media without really entertainment when it should be informant of something like that. Because a lot of people don't realize the difference between entertainment and reality and how things can be misconstrued, and people's view of things like mental health and mental illness could definitely be strayed away from what it should be based on the things that they consume and the media that they consume, whether it's the news, whether it's entertainment like a movie or a TV show.
I feel like, especially in teen dramas or like the shows and movies aimed at younger people, mental illness is either really glorified, as in the main character is mentally ill and he or she or they are really cool, and like it's makes them edgy, and I don't know, and people just don't really treat it as an illness. When they watch the movie, they think it's like, oh, she's just so cool. But then there's also, in a lot of shows, there's one side character who's just mentally ill, and that's all they are. You know, it's like the person is defined by their illness. And so while it shows that you have to pay attention to mental illness, it also makes it seem like there's nothing more to a person than just being bipolar or having really severe OCD or something.
I think one thing that we haven't touched on, we touched a lot about like the media and like entertainment products. On the flip side, like social media, to be honest, like growing up as, you know, whether you're a toddler now or you're like my age, where you're at kind of the front end of the people who grew up with smartphones and personal devices, being a kid with social media is difficult. Like, there are so many different forms of toxicity that are spread on all the different platforms, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok's a major one now, Twitter. Like, obviously there are a lot of forms of use of those platforms that are good and like make them necessary in modern life, but personal interactions with those platforms and the amount of time that you spend on them, the like information that you're exposed to, whether it's like a friend who's posting a picture that's like that, like it's one of the 10 pictures that they post every year. Like it's meant to be a misrepresentation of reality. It doesn't really show the day-to-day.
Yeah, we're very vulnerable when it comes to media and social media, because we could follow someone who represents mental illness and struggles like that, wrong or right, and they have the platform to do that, and they're reaching out to so many different people. And teenagers can use social media as a coping mechanism, and they can learn and educate themselves a lot, or they can be harmed. They can harm themselves with the media they consume, or they can be harmed by other people that are using the internet. And we shouldn't demonize social media either, because it's not a ton of people just trying to make others feel bad, but you will get into situations on social media that are harmful, and the way that teenagers deal with them and learn from them and move on from them is really important.
Like, what LifeAct taught me in high school was that being an open ear and being an open platform for discussion with any of your friends, regardless of whether they're showing like acute symptoms of any mental illness or not, is super important to everyone's well-being. Not only their well-being, but it just being able to have an open, honest discussion with someone also helps yourself.
I am struggling to put into words seriously what LifeAct means to me, because it's had such an impact on my life, and I think it's had such an impact on a lot of kids' lives, and I will be forever grateful for it. Their mission is so important and so underaddressed, and I mean, it's literally life-saving, and it sheds a light on an issue that, I mean, as we said a few times during this thing, that not nearly enough light is shed on.
Everyone should have an outlet for reaching out and mental illness, whether it's LifeAct or another organization. They should have that in their life. And it's a support system, in a way, on top of family and on top of friends. It makes people realize that they should have something in their lives that and highlights the things that LifeAct does.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them, and we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a string that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good. It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me, like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship blown from its mooring by a wind off the sea, like a seed dropped by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you blamed me for. But then I guess we know there's blame to share, and none of it seems to matter anymore. Like a comet falls from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better. And because I knew you, because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for
Thank you to the students at North Royalton High School's Royal Harmony Singing Choir for sharing their amazing voices with us. We hope you've enjoyed this evening's incredible messages of hope and strength, but we're not quite done shining a light on mental health. Right now, we are going to light up the night sky with an incredible fireworks display, and we hope that this serves as a powerful reminder of how each of us can be the light and the hope for others who may be experiencing mental challenges. And for those who are remembering a loved one lost to suicide, I hope that you will find in these sparkling lights the eyes of our loved ones. They're twinkling down on us to let us know that they are at peace. And they want us to find peace and new joy in our lives. And on that note, please enjoy the show. And we hope to see you on Sunday, April 18th, 2021, back at the Cleveland Metro Park Zoo for the 17th annual Into the Light Walk, as we again gather to shine a light on mental health. And on to the fireworks.
Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not, 'cause the dreams bring back all the memories of everything we've been through.
Close to the ones here today, close to the ones that we lost on the way, 'cause the dreams bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back you.
There's a time that I remember when I did not know no pain,
When I believed in forever and everything would stay the same.
now my heart feel like December when somebody say your name.
'Cause I can't reach out to call you, but I know I will one day, yeah.
Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday, yeah.
But everything will be alright. Go as your voice will say, hey.
Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not, 'cause the dreams bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Close to the ones here today, close to the ones that we lost on the way, 'cause the dreams bring back all the memories, and the memories bring back you. Memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost,
When I felt that all the hatred was too powerful to stop.
now my heart feel like an ember,
And it's lighting up the dark.
I'll carry these torches for ya,
That you know I'll never drop, yeah.
Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday, hey, hey.
But everything gon' be alright.
Go and raise your voice and say, hey,